Hilchos Chovel uMazzik Perek Aleph, Chapter 1, Mitzvahs Aseachas, contains one mitzvah. V'hudin Chovel b'chavei uMazzik mimeni. This is the laws regarding payment when a person injures a friend or damages his property. And the mitzvahs will be explained in this Perek. Aleph. HaChovel b'chavei, a person who injures his friend, chayiv l'shalom lei chamisha devarim. He has to pay him 5 ways. Be'eluheim, what are the 5 ways he has to pay him? Nezek, he has to pay for damages. The tsar, his pain. V'ripoi, his medical treatment. The shevis, his loss of employment. Ubeishis, and embarrassment. V'chamisha devarim elu, hulam nishtalmin, min hayofa, shemenechosav kedin Chovel uMazzik. All these 5 assessments has to be paid from the highest quality of property that he owns, as the halacha with regards for payments, for damages. And the Rambam is going to go through each one now. Nezek ketzad. We said the first damage that he has to pay for if he damages his friend is for nezek. What does nezek mean? Shem kita yad chavei. A person cuts off the hand, cuts off his friend's hand, or the foot. We theoretically look at the injured friend as a servant being sold in the marketplace and evaluate his value before the injury and his value afterwards. And the person who caused the injury has to pay the depreciation in value. As it says, ayin taras ayin, an eye for an eye. We'll learn. This that we say an eye for an eye doesn't mean you actually take out the other guy's eye. Rather, it means you have to pay the financial responsibilities of it. Gimel. This is the Teda says, just as he caused injury to his friend, so too an injury should cause to him. It doesn't mean in a literal sense. It doesn't mean that a person who caused the injury should actually be subjected to similar physical punishment. Rather, what do? You just pay the damage. And this that it says, do not accept the ransom of the soul of the murderer, it only is for the Ritzeach, but he does not get ransom. The ransom is paid for causing a loss of a limb or other injuries. Dalet. This that the Teda says in regards to a person who injures a friend and causes him damage. They do not have rachmanas on him, don't have compassion. Do not have compassion in evaluating the amount he's required to pay. That the Teda says you should not say he's poor, he didn't mean it, didn't mean to injure him. So Abraham is in him. Therefore the Teda says do not have mercy on him. Hey, how do you know when the Teda says an eye for an eye? It means a financial restitution. Teda says a blow for a blow. We finish and with regards to the penalty for giving a friend a blow, the Teda says when a man strikes his friend with a stone or a fist, you should he should pay for his being idle and for his medical expenses. So you learn that when it says tachas, it means financial restitution. And the same with regards to an eye or another limb is also Vav. Although these interpretations are obvious from Teda B'Chsav, they're explicitly mentioned Teda B'Peh. This is what our ancestors saw in the Beis Din of Yeshua, and Shmuel Amasi, and every single Beis Din that has functioned the days from Moshe Rabbeinu until now. What's the mocker that teaches that a person who injures a friend has to pay the penalty for the tsar, for the pain? Shenemar be'enis, as it says with regards to a girl who has been raped, tachas ha'shechina, because you oppressed her. Same applies, is required to give him financial payment for the pain he caused. How do you know that he's chayav to pay the victim's unemployment and medical expenses? Like it says, he should pay for being idled and for his medical expenses. And where do you know that he is chayav for embarrassment? It says, and she extends her hand, grabbing his private parts for Gatsis Kappa, you must cut off her hand. The same Allah applies to no one who embarrasses another person. A person who causes embarrassment is not chayav unless he acts intentionally. And she extends her hand. But person who embarrasses a friend without kavanah is not chayav. Therefore, a person who's sleeping and embarrassed a friend is not chayav. A person is always a mu'ad at all times, whether acting intentionally, unintentionally, whether they're asleep, whether they're awake, whether he's a shikar. If he injured a person, if it damages a person, he has to reimburse the person from the choice of his property. When do we say this? When do you say a person is chayav to, while he's asleep, to pay? When they both went to sleep at the same time, and one turned over and injured his friend or tore his garment. If, however, a person was sleeping, and a guy came and lay down next to him, so says who is zika yoshin potter. So now the person who laid down next to him, he's the mu'ad. The one who's sleeping, he's potter. The person puts, let's say, a keli next to a person who's sleeping, or short, and it broke. Potter, the guy's potter. Because the person who put down the article, he's the one who's a mu'ad, who acted the negligence. Your base, mishanafal min hagag, baruch mitzuya v'hizik. Person who fell from a roof because of the ruach mitzuya, an ordinary wind that caused damage. He's chayav for 4 assessments, and he's putter for embarrassing. If he fell from a ruach she'ena mitzuya, he's chayav and nezek alone, and he's putter for the 4 things. And if he turned over so that he would fall on a person, he's chayav for beishas all. Why? Whoever a person intentionally causes his injury is chayav for the embarrassment he caused, even though he did not have kavanah for embarrassing the other person. When 2 people injure another person at the same time, they are chayav and they divide the assessment between themselves. If one of them acted b'kavana, the other acted the one acted b'kavana is not chayav for the embarrassment that it was caused. If a person had kavanah to embarrass a minor and instead he embarrassed an adult, he's required to pay the adult. What would it have to pay for embarrassing a minor? If a person had in mind to embarrass a servant and instead embarrassed a free man, he's required to pay the free man. I would have had to pay embarrassment for a servant. If a stone was placed in a person's a chest, then regardless of whether he had known about it or he had not known about it. And he had known about it and forgotten about it. And he got up and he stood up. So chayiv ben ezek b'vad u'pater mar b'dvar. He's chayiv an injury, but he's pater for the other things. If he intended to throw a stone two cubits, and threw 4 and injured a person, or he caused an injury while sleeping, is chayiv only for injury, not for other assessments. A person injures a friend, he is chayiv for 5 things. Even if a person has permission to remove the guy from the domain, he does not have permission to injure him. If over the person entered bumps into the owner and he's injured, he's potter. If the owner bumps into him and he's injured, the person who entered him is chayiv for entered without permission. If both had permission to be in that rishus, neither had permission, and they hurt each other, either is chayiv. If a person was in rishus harabim, and now he starts hacking bolts, breaking wood, and now he was chopping wood in the rishus harabim, and the piece of wood now flew and caused injury to the rishus harabim. Let's say he's in his house, he's chopping wood, and that wood flew and hit somebody else's in another rishus. Or a person entered a carpet guy's store, whether with permission or without permission, and a block of wood was propelled and hit him in the face. So he's going to be chayiv for all 4 things, but not for embarrassing. And just as an evaluation is made with regards to death, so too is an evaluation with regards to damage. Kate said, how so? If he strikes a friend with a small stone that is not large enough to cause injury, or a small silver of wood and causes injury that this article is not capable of causing, so he's potter. It says, but Evan a begrif of a man striking a friend with a stone or a fist. A thing that is capable of causing injury. Is chayiv for embarrassment that he caused. I feel a rochak v'gufish chaver chayiv u'veishus. Even if he merely spat on his friend's person, he's chayiv for embarrassment that he caused. The figures tirim haridim. So therefore, witnesses have to know the article that caused the injury. The article is brought to Beis Din, and the evaluation is made concerning it and the reckoning. The article that caused the injury was lost, and the person who caused the injury claims it was not sufficient to cause the injury. The injury occurred because of forces beyond my control, and the person who was injured claims it was sufficient to cause the injury. The person who was injured should support the claim of the oath and collect his due, as will be explained. It says, a metal object is never evaluated to see whether it can cause injury. Instead, we assume that it can, for even a small needle is capable of killing and surely causing injury. When a person throws a stone and afterwards another person extends his head out of the window and is struck by it, so the one who threw the stone is not chayiv. It says, it says that an axe coming loose and striking a friend, this excludes one who causes himself to be stricken. Chovel uMazzik Perek Beis, Chapter 2. Chovel uMazzik. When a person injures a friend in a manner that warrants payment of all 5 assessments, so he's required to pay all 5. If he injures him in a manner that only warrants the payment of 4, he has to pay him 4. So on and so forth. Kate said, how so? If a person cuts off a friend's hand or foot or a finger or a toe, He has to pay all 5 assessments: the damage of his pain, his medical treatment, his loss of unemployment, and the embarrassment he suffered. If he struck him on his hand and it swelled, but it will ultimately return to its size, or his eye and it displaced, but it will heal. So then, he pays. He should pay 4 assessments: his pain, his medical treatment, his loss of employment, and the embarrassment he suffered. You call it struck him in the head and the swell, he should pay 3 assessments: his pain, his medical treatment, and the embarrassment he suffered. He called struck him in a place where the blow cannot be seen. He struck him, let's say, on the knees or the back. He should pay 2 assessments: his pain, his medical treatment. If a person instructs a friend on his handkerchief he was holding, or a document, he should pay only the assessment of embarrassment. Gimel. A person burned a friend with a spit or a nail or his fingernails, a place where a wound is not made, and that does not prevent the person from working. You should pay only for pain. If a person causes a friend to drink a drug, or anoints him with a drug that changes the color of the skin, he is required to pay the medical expenses necessary until the skin returns to its original color. If you locked him in a room, he reimburses him only for the loss of unemployment. If a person shaves the head of his friend, he only has to pay him for the embarrassment because it will grow back. If he removes the hair with potion or burns his head so that his hair will never grow back, then he's chayav for all 5 assessments. Damages, pain, and medical attention because his head was heated by the burn of the potion, and this will cause headaches. He has to pay for unemployment because previously he was fit to dance and shake the locks of the hair, and he's prevented from performing the type of work. And there's no greater embarrassment than this. So it comes out like this. When a person causes a friend to loss of a limb that will not grow back, he has to pay all 5 payments. Even if he knocked at a tooth, he's chayav for all 5 payments. For it's impossible that he will not suffer pain in his mouth for a certain amount of time because of the loss. Although there's no medical treatment for a tooth itself, the gums require medical treatment. Even if he causes him a loss, a piece of flesh the size of a barley corn, he has to pay all 5 assessments. He must pay for the permanent damage because the skin will never return, instead scar tissue will form. If a person injures a friend, cuts his flesh, and causes him to bleed, he is chayav for all 5 assessments. A person who scars a friend, there's a even if the fright causes him to fall, he's not chayav according to the judgment. He doesn't have a moral and spiritual obligation to compensate him. This, however, applies only when he did not touch him, but merely shouted behind him, appeared him in the darkness of the light. And if a person shouted in a friend's ear and caused him to become deaf, he's chayav in the shamayim. Also, if ever a person grasped hold of his friend and blew a horn in his ear and caused him to become deaf, touched him or pushed him when he frightened him, took hold of his clothes, he's obligated to pay the compensation, even though according to Beis Din. Now, Ram says it appears to me that if an injured party claims to have been deaf or blinded, he cannot see or hear, we don't believe him. We don't know about this. Now, we don't pay him unless we will observe for an extended period of time, or we'll establish that he lost his sight or his hearing. Only then must the person who caused the damage pay. What compensation must be paid for pain? Everything depends on the injured party. Certain people who are spoiled or wealthy and will not bear even a slight amount of pain for a large amount of money. There are people who are heavy laborers, strong and poor, and will bear much suffering for a single zuz. Based on these, evaluating and determining the compensation of pain. Good. How is pain evaluated when there's a loss of a limb? Now, in this So how is pain evaluated when there's a loss of a limb? If a person cut off a friend's hand or a finger, we evaluate how much a person would give to have his limb amputated with a potion instead of having it cut with a sword. If the melt, the creed on his hand or foot must be cut off. We evaluate the difference between the two. The one who caused the injury is required to pay that amount. How do we evaluate unemployment? If he did not cause the person to lose a limb, but instead caused him to become sick and invalid, or his arm is swelled but it will return to its original size, the person who caused the injury must pay the victim of his unemployment for each day, like an unemployed worker for the trade in which he is unemployed. Which is he employed? If he caused him to lose a limb or cut off his hand, he must pay him the full compensation for the hand, this being the damage. Now, in this instance, we judge him as if he were to guard a patch of squash. We evaluate how much such a guard would earn each day, then calculate the number of days he will be incapacitated. Person who cuts off a friend's leg, we calculate the wage as if he were a door guard. If he blinded, we calculate a wage as if he worked in a mill. Person hits a friend on his ear or blows a horn into his ear or causes him to become deaf, pays the entire worth, for the victim is no longer able to work. If the A person blinded a friend, and before the damage were evaluated, cut off his hand, and before those damages were evaluated, cut off his leg, and before those damages were evaluated, became deaf. Since an evaluation was not made for each damages, and ultimately the person who caused the injury was required to pay the victim's entire worth, this is also the obligation. If an evaluation was made for each of the previous damages, and an evaluation was made for the entire worth, the Beis Din collects only the injured worth from the person who inflicted an injury. However, the injured ceases payment for every injury, limb, or for the entire worth, the property of the person who inflicted the injury is not taken away. How is the assessment of medical bills evaluated? We estimate how many days this ailment will last and what is he required to treat it. He does not to pay every day. This is an enactment in favor of a person who caused the injury. Similarly, unemployment assessment is evaluated and he must pay it immediately. The injured party ailment develops complications and becomes extended beyond the amount originally estimated. The person who caused the injury is not required to pay him more. Chinim hivri miyad in pirsanim masham do. If he becomes healed immediately, the assessment is not reduced. The person who caused the injury agrees for this enactment to be the benefit. If the person who caused the injury says, I don't desire this takana, instead I will pay his medical bills day by day, he's giving this prerogative. Yud Zayin, Amrullah Nizik Psik Imi Viten Al Yodi Bani Arapis Asfimi Shemelei, A Shemelei Shani, Emerlei Shemelei Tarapas Machava Sakani Kamazik, Alanis Lidmari MBM. The person who suffered the injury says, assess my injury and give me the money. I will heal myself. We don't listen. For the person who caused the injury can say, perhaps you will not be successful in healing yourself, and I will be viewed as responsible for the injury. Instead, he has to pay the medical expenses every day. Or they make an amount for his medical expenses and to the Beis Din on his behalf. If a person caused an injury, says, I will heal you, or he says, I have a doctor who will heal you without any charge, his words are not listened to, instead he's required to bring a professional physician who charges for healing. He tells her, the person if an assessment was not made out of the outset, the person who caused the injury chooses to pay the medical bills day by day. If affliction arose because of the wound, or if the wound opened again after it began to heal, he's required to pay for the medical expenses and for the unemployment. If an infection arose that was not caused by the wound, he's obligated to pay for the medical expenses. But he's not obligated to pay for unemployment. Overall, the injured person, if the person who injured didn't listen to the doctor's instructions and the severity of the ailment increased, the person who caused the injury is not obligated to heal him. The Beis Din arrives in an assessment and obligates the person who caused the injury to pay. The entire amount is taken from him immediately, and we do not grant him time to sell his property. If he became obligated for embarrassment alone, we grant him time to sell his property if it did not cause the victim any loss. Hilchos Chovel uMazzik Perek Gimel, chapter 3, has 11 halachas. Aleph, Ketzim Misharan Abishas. How do we assess the embarrassment? Everything depends on the character of the person who causes the embarrassment and the one who was embarrassed. The embarrassment caused by a child cannot be compared to the embarrassment caused by a respected adult. Since the embarrassment caused by somebody who's chashuv is one is greater. A person who embarrasses someone who's naked, or a person who's in a bathhouse, is potter. If the wind blew and raised the person's clothes up against his face, revealing his nakedness, and the other person removed more of his garments, the guy is higher for causing embarrassment. There's embarrassment caused to this person who's naked, nakedness was revealed, cannot be compared to the embarrassment of a person who was not naked at all. A person lifted up his clothes to go down to a river or ascend from a river, and another person embarrassed him, the person is chayiv. Embarrassment, nevertheless, caused to this person cannot be compared to the embarrassment of a person who is fully clothed. A person who embarrasses a friend who is sleeping, he is chayiv. And gave a bishizim. The person died in his sleep and never became aware of this person and embarrassed him. The assessment for embarrassment should not be taken from the person who caused the embarrassment. If the Yershin take it, then we will take it out from them. Dal, is a shait potter, person who embarrasses a shait is potter. Is a cherish is chayiv. Person who embarrasses a deaf beard is chayiv. Is a geras eved is chayiv. Is a cotton imkish machlim in ahisoi. Nichlom chayiv im lav potter. If a person embarrasses a minor, if he gets embarrassed, it's chayiv. If not, it's potter. And in dem is a cotton, is a gadol. You can't compare embarrassing a cotton to a gadol. But then can't compare being mevashis ben chedin to a gadol, to a ben chedin, to a evet of a ben chedin. And you can't compare somebody who's mentally competent to somebody who's not. Hey, person embarrasses a friend with words or spits him in the clothing, it's nothing. It's putter. The basin can impose appropriate restraints concerning such matters at every place and time. A person embarrasses the Chacham, he is chayav to pay a full measure of embarrassment, even though he embarrassed only with the Dvarim. Dinner. Allah already has been ordained that anyone who embarrasses a Talmid Chacham, even with verbal abuse, is penalized and is required to pay 35 golden dinar, the weight of 8 3/4 salayim. It's already accepted tradition that this penalty is exacted in all places and are just on all in the Chutz La'aretz. They have continually been instances in our community in Spain. There are some Talmid Chacham who have weighed this payment. This is praiseworthy of them. Those who demand payment and reach a compromise. However, the Yanim tell the person who caused embarrassment, you are obligated to pay him a pound of gold. Although a person who embarrasses someone else verbally is not chayav financial payment, it's a grave sin. Only a wicked and foolish person abuses and insults people. Chacham already said, whoever embarrasses a proper Jewish person in public with words does not have a share in Elam Abba. There are many types of blows that involve embarrassment and a small amount of pain but no permanent damage. Chacham already established specific payments for these blows. Whoever strikes a friend with one of these blows must pay the specified amount. These are knosses. Specific amount that the person must pay in the assessment of pain, embarrassment, medical attention, unemployment. Whether or not the injury requires medical attention or loses employment, this is the amount he must pay. Test. How much does he have to pay? Person who kicks his friend has to pay 5 slime. If he butts him with the knee, he has to pay 3 slime. Key baits at space. If he hits him with a fist, he must pay 13 slime. If he slams his friend with his palm, he has to pay sela. If he slaps him in his face, he has to pay 50 slime. If he slaps him in his face and his back, he has to pay 50. If he twists his ear, pulls his ear, spits out of him, spittles, touches his body, removes the men's garment or woman's head covering, Hajj Islam, Kitzad, Hansok Shaboet, Bechaviri Arbo, Bihites, Afilus Archazum Shalom, how he must pay this amount for everybody. Here's what is implied. If he kicks a friend 4 times, if he kicks immediately in succession, he must pay him 20 slam. If he slaps him in the face twice, he has to pay 100 slam. Slam mentioned in this context refers to the silver coins used in Eretz Yisrael. Every seller was composed of a half a dinar of pure silver and 3.5 dinar of copper. If a person became chayav to pay 100 slime because of such blows, he is chayav to pay him 12.5 slime of pure silver. As about the distinguished person involved. When a distinguished person is involved, if a person is involved, was not particular about these things or the like, he receives only the amount of money that is appropriate for him. Says by the judge, there are base people who are not concerned with being ashamed and will not demean themselves in any humiliating manner for foolishness or frivolity, or the receiver put them for fools who jest with them.